Have you ever felt a deep, unshakable sense that something is missing? That despite everything you've built, learned, or achieved, there's a hollow space inside you, whispering questions you can't answer. Why am I here? What does any of this mean? Is there a point to all of it? If you felt this, you're not broken. You're not lost. You're awake. This is existential angst, and it's one of the most terrifying, beautiful forces a human can experience. But what if I told you that this unsettling void isn't your enemy? That it's actually the birthplace of your most potent creative energy? Most people spend their lives running from it. They fill their calendars, their homes, their minds with noise and distraction. Because if you sit in silence long enough, those ancient questions start to surface. The kind of questions that make your chest tighten and your stomach sink. What am I doing with my life? What happens when I die? Does any of this matter? It feels heavy because it is. But here's the truth. Every great artist, philosopher, and thinker who ever left a mark on this world faced these same shadows. And they didn't just survive them, they transformed them. Existential angst is a signal. It means your soul is stirring, restless in the cage of surface-level living. It means you've glimpsed the absurdity of a world that tells you to follow a script without questioning the meaning behind it. And now you stand at the edge where most turn back. But you don't have to. You can turn this unease into fuel, into art, into creation, into something eternal. The first step is to stop pathologizing your discomfort. Our culture loves to label any intense emotion as a problem to fix. But existential angst isn't an illness. It's an awakening. It's the friction that happens when your inner world refuses to stay numb in a shallow existence. And within that friction is raw, unfiltered creative potential. Think of history's greatest minds, Nietzsche, Dostoevsky, Van Gogh, Kahlo, Rumi, even Bowie. They didn't avoid their inner darkness. They stepped into it. They danced with their doubts. And from that chaos, they built works that outlived them. The darkness they faced wasn't a wall. It was a doorway. And through it, they reached depths of beauty and truth unreachable by the comfortable. But how do you do this? How do you turn dread into a spark? It starts by not running. When that weight sits in your chest, don't distract yourself. Don't reach for your phone, the TV, or some numbing habit. Sit with it. Name it. Trace its shape. Ask yourself where it's coming from. Is it the fear of death, the ache of purposelessness, the weight of wasted time? Whatever it is, bring it into the light. You'll find that when you stop resisting it, it begins to morph. It no longer feels like a suffocating void. It becomes a space. And within that space, ideas start to flicker. Questions you never asked yourself. Longings you buried. Visions of a life shaped by your own hand, not one handed to you. This is where creativity is born, not in the shallow pool of certainty, but in the deep waters of not knowing. There's a reason some of the most moving works of art come from those who wrestled with their own existence. Because it's in those moments of profound unease that the human spirit reaches for something greater. Not out of vanity, but necessity. It's not a luxury. It's survival. And here's the paradox. The very thing that makes life feel meaningless is the same thing that grants you absolute freedom. If nothing has inherent meaning, you are free to create your own. You are free to assign significance to your actions, your words, your creations. This isn't a burden, it's a power. And it's one most people never claim because they're too afraid of the responsibility. The next step is to channel it, not into more overthinking, but into action. Write, even if no one reads it. Paint, even if no one sees it. Build something strange and personal. Let your angst become a conversation between you and the void. And in that dialogue, you'll find pieces of yourself you didn't know existed. Some of the most hauntingly beautiful works in history were never meant for an audience. Van Gogh sold only one painting in his lifetime. Emily Dickinson kept most of her poems hidden. Yet, what they created was not wasted. It fed their souls. It turned unbearable restlessness into something tangible. And eventually it spoke to others, to us. Your angst is a compass. It's pointing to the things you've ignored, the questions you've postponed, the art you've yet to make. Every time you feel that ache, it's not a sign you're failing at life. It's a reminder you're alive. You are not a machine built for efficiency and routine. You're a creature made for meaning. And sometimes, meaning isn't given to you. You carve it out of chaos. And that chaos, as terrifying as it feels, is fertile ground. The greatest ideas aren't born in perfect clarity, but in confusion, tension, and longing. That's where originality lives. Not in the polished, acceptable corners of your mind, but in the dark, unlit places where no one else dares to go. That's where your voice is hiding. That's where the story you were meant to tell waits. In those moments of existential crisis, ask yourself, what am I afraid to say? What part of me have I buried to fit in? What if I expressed it, not for approval, not for followers, but because the alternative is to keep it locked inside, festering? And when you start to create from that place, not for validation, not for recognition, but for survival, your work carries a pulse. People feel it, even if they can't explain why, and perhaps more importantly, you'll feel it. There's a deep, indescribable satisfaction that comes from turning pain into something beautiful. It doesn't erase the pain, but it transforms your relationship with it. It stops being a weight and becomes a tool that shapes you, sharpens you, connects you to something ancient and vast. The collective human experience of searching, of aching, of reaching. You realize you're not the first to feel this way, and you won't be the last. That the void you feel is not unique, but shared. And in that realization, there's a strange kind of comfort. A sense of kinship with every restless soul who came before you, and everyone that will come after. Your angst becomes less about you, and more about what it can awaken in others. When you offer your rawest, most honest work to the world, you create a bridge. One person's courage to face their darkness gives another permission to do the same. That's how art saves people. Not by offering answers, but by making them feel less alone in the asking. And maybe that's the point. Not to solve existence, but to express it. To leave a trail of beautiful, broken artifacts that say, I was here. I felt this too. And in that act, you grant your life its own meaning. Not one dictated by culture or creed, but one you forged in the fire of your own searching. That's where the true power lies. It's not in having the answers. It's in daring to ask the questions out loud. Now that you've started to see your existential angst as a powerful catalyst, how do you maintain this creative flow without being overwhelmed? How do you prevent the abyss from swallowing you whole, and instead use it as a launching pad for expression? The answer lies in balance. You don't have to be trapped in despair to create. In fact, many creators find that brief, intentional encounters with their deepest questions, followed by periods of grounding and restoration, are the key. You can use practices like journaling, meditation, or even simple walks in nature to give your mind space to breathe. These moments act as pressure valves, allowing the tension of existential questioning to energize rather than exhaust you. Another essential step is to cultivate curiosity about your angst. Instead of seeing it as a curse, treat it like a puzzle. What patterns emerge when you explore your fears and doubts? How does this discomfort shape your view of the world? When you become a detective of your own soul, you transform existential angst from a source of paralysis into an engine for insight and innovation. And what about community? The myth of the solitary tortured artist is just that, a myth. Connection with others who are wrestling with similar questions can be profoundly healing and inspiring. Sharing your struggles and creations invites feedback, encouragement, and new perspectives that can deepen your work. It also reminds you that you're not alone in this wild, confusing journey. Let's talk about tools, too. Some people channel their angst through music, others through painting, writing, dance, or even entrepreneurship. There is no right or wrong medium, only the one that resonates with your inner truth. The act of creation itself, regardless of skill level or outcome, is an act of rebellion against meaninglessness. It's a declaration that your experience matters and deserves to be expressed. But what if you're stuck? What if the weight feels too heavy and the well of creativity runs dry? Then lean into your discomfort differently. Sometimes creating doesn't mean producing a masterpiece. It means showing up, scribbling a few lines, playing a note, or simply sitting with your emotions and letting them flow through you. The practice is the point. Over time, those small acts build resilience, deepen your voice, and unlock new wells of creativity. Consider also the power of reframing your narrative. Instead of seeing existential angst as a burden to bear, imagine it as a gift, a secret key to unlock the richness of your inner world. What if your very sensitivity to life's uncertainties is your superpower? What if this profound questioning leads you to insights others never reach? This shift in perspective can turn dread into excitement, despair into possibility. There's also a spiritual dimension here. Many mystics and philosophers say that existential angst is the soul's cry for transcendence. It's the restless urge to connect with something beyond the self, beyond the noise of daily life. Whether you find that in nature, art, meditation, religion, or simply in the act of creating itself, answering that call feeds your creativity and nourishes your spirit. Throughout history, art born from existential questioning has changed societies, challenged norms, and inspired revolutions of thought. Your creative response to your own angst could be part of that continuum, a voice in the long conversation humanity has about meaning, suffering, and beauty. So, as you navigate your own existential questions, remember this: your angst is not a curse. It's a spark. It's the raw material of creation waiting for your hands to shape it. The discomfort is the invitation to dive deeper, to explore what lies beneath surface living, and to express your truth with bravery. Now, it's your turn. What will you create from your own experience of existential angst? How will you transform your deepest questions into your most powerful art? Share your thoughts or your creative process in the comments below. Let's start a conversation about turning our darkness into light together. Because in the end, the most profound truth we can live by is this: meaning isn't found, meaning is made, and you hold the tools to create it.